out you're in a hospital.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, it looks like it's 7 o'clock, everybody. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. This
We're just waiting
time,
for it.
Hold on just a second.
We gotta make sure it's on YouTube. Yep, it's muted. All right, we're good to go.
All right, good to go.
perfect. If we can all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Like, United States of
of America and to the
Republic
republic for which it stands, one
Nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And then if you want to go ahead and call roll call, please.
All righty. Tim Dean,
Here.
Bruce Angel,
here,
Yvonne Van Orem,
Here.
Mike Thomas,
here.
and Jan Berg.
She's excused.
She's excused. Yep, and then we're gonna bring in our participants here. Alan, can you hear me? Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, just bear with me here a second. Okay. Scott, can you hear us?
So, place.
Oh,
Are you still building those or are you installing?
and now I'm gonna share my screen.
Installing.
Went up
Are
there.
you still building or are you installing?
Oh,
All right,
no,
so
I'm
now-
still building.
Are you?
Oh. 42 cabinets,
Oh, yeah, that's a,
42 shelves and drawers. Pull out shelf.
Okay, Scott and Alan, can you hear us?
Yes,
Scott?
yes.
Okay. That's
Okay.
good.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All righty. Moving along, Tim.
Oh, everyone is here now?
Yep.
Perfect. The first item would be approval of the agenda. So chair looks for a motion.
Move to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item on this would be workshop items. So no final action will be taken today. And the first item on our workshop items is Back to the Ranch Design Review, PLN number 692.
So the applicant, Back at the Ranch LLC, is seeking design review approval to construct one 8,100 square foot warehouse building that will serve as storage for sensitive components for tower cranes being stored on lot 25 of the Arlington Advanced Manufacturing Park. In addition to the second primary building, which is 13,000 square feet, 662, with 4,318 square feet of that is office space that will serve as headquarters for the Spartan Concrete Incorporated. This review is based off of the submittal items that were based off of March 24th, 2020, as well as June 2nd, 2020. Per the staff's review of these two submittals, staff has provided these conditions. Utility meters, electrical conduit, and other service lines may not be mounted on the facade facing the street and should not be visible from the street. Site and/or screen mechanical equipment so not to be seen from the sidewalk, and service elements like mailboxes, utility meters, trash facilities, and lighting shall be incorporated into the overall design of the project. The applicant has already spoken with staff and says they are willing to work with staff further on in the process to make sure these conditions are met. Based off of that, staff is recommending the Design Review Board approve with conditions the design review application for Back at the Ranch LLC, PLN 692, based off of the attached standards matrix as well as the planning staff report.
Thank you, Josh. So we'd like to open it up for any questions or comments. Just like we have done before, what I'd like to do is to kind of go through each member and see if they have any questions or comments before we move forward. So Yvonne, I'd like to start with you. Did you have any questions or comments on this design review?
No, not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, thank you. And Mike, I don't know if you had an opportunity to see the elevations on this.
Yes.
You have, okay, good. Did you have any questions or comments?
No.
None today, okay. Bruce, did you have any questions or comments on this design review item?
Just is it possible to get that bottom feature? I've forgotten what that is.
That one?
Which feature?
You mean
The
the,
bottom
The,
band.
oh, you just want the material?
Yeah, I think that's already been presented, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I believe it's a masonry product. Yeah, I don't know if Scott wants to go into it.
No, I wouldn't be able to give you further detail. It'll be similar to the masonry product on the primary building. So it's on the first building on the plan. Whatever that product is, I'm sure that they'll be consistent.
Any further questions or comments on that, Bruce?
Yeah, I just haven't seen it for a while, and I'm assuming staff is okay with, it appears still that the primary articulation feature is painted. Am I missing something?
So there is a bump up of those. It is utilizing the drain, the downspouts for part of that, as well as you have the window glazing, as well as the overall square footage between those. I do not have labeled on that one, but it is less than the 40 to 50 foot required.
Okay. That's all I have, Tim.
All right, thank you very much. I just had one question again, and I just needed clarification on this, Josh. If, on the screen that we're seeing right now, the lower item shows, I believe, the north exposure of the building. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, and on those squares, it has a little mark on them. And I believe I asked you this before, but if I could just have a little bit of clarity on it. Is all of that glazing?
Correct. That's just the typical symbology for just show glazing, because it would just appear to be a blank square if they just showed typical glazing without that
Right.
hatching applied to it.
All of that is going to be window, huh? Right?
Correct.
Wow, that's going to look nice. Okay. Really, that's the only clarity I had on this one. So that's really pretty simple on that. And I believe it is Scott. If you had any comments or questions of us, did you have anything today?
No, I just wanted to make it clear that we are ready, willing to work with staff on those conditions as discussed before. And I think to provide a little clarity on what the kind of masonry product or whatever it's going to be, the Red Line project across the street from this has the same type of skirting almost all the way around, kind of a wainscoting type height. And we're trying to be somewhat consistent with how that looked.
they were
So.
panels.
Hmm?
They're panels with the texture.
I think they're panels of a cement product. I'm not exactly
Yeah.
sure what it is.
And I guess if you look at the scale to where the door is,
Yeah,
it gives you an idea of the height of it. So,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
No other questions or comments on workshop item number 1. We'll now move on to workshop item number 2. That's going to be Dungeness Gearworks Design Review, PLN number 706.
So yeah, you might recall from our last meeting, we tried to bring this forward. However, we had some technical difficulties with Alan. So Alan kind of just wanted to explain the changes that were being proposed for the, essentially for the changes for the Dungeness Gearworks from the last time you saw it on Design Review Board, as well as he's provided some photos to give better context for the type of paneling that is being provided on the edges of the structure. So certainly, Alan, if you have any additional comments, feel free to provide them now.
What I've provided a couple additional pictures, if we can screen down a little bit. This is a box rib profile panel. It runs horizontal next to the panel rib. And as you can see from our earlier plans, I think there's one more corner shot from that, Josh. I think it's the next photo down. This kind of shows how it dives into the corner, ties in, gives you a direct break in the contrast of the project. And then if you would go to, could you go to sheet A30 on our,
Might be this.
let's see, whoops, okay.
Give us a second.
Okay. The west elevation shows that break on each corner, then it returns back on each side. The north elevation has it on the other corners also, on all four corners of the building, which reflect this. We haven't done that much more to the north elevation for the reason is, if you can see, looking at the west building elevation, the overall distance from the existing building and this building is less than 20 feet. So as a person drives by, you're not really ever going to see a full profile of that end wall because you have but a second or two to, as you're driving by that short footage. If you'll go to the next elevation, 3.1. Thank you. What we've done here is this is the east elevation, and it has the corners. We're changing they're showing up kind of a blue, but we would change those downspouts to be the darker gray to match the high rib. That would give a little bit a break contrast there, unless you prefer blue. And then what the owner is looking at as far as the south elevation, we have basically four panels shown there, locations, and they're about approximately 6 feet wide a piece. The width of that building at that point is 80 feet. And then, Josh, do you have another 3.1 that has a different logo signage wise on it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. The owner kind of preferred this. We don't have a crop, but he was looking at having a king crab pot there with a crab on it there for some additional signing for that south elevation. As a person drives going westbound on 180th Street, the east elevation and the south elevation, this is a 20-foot eve height building. Because of the 8-foot fence, you really only see about from 10 feet of wall area up to the eaves. You see less than half of that 20 feet going those two directions. And so it's not like it's a big bare wall, but we feel that these added features meets the requirement, and we're happy to make this come to pass. But I just wanted to explain this to you and give you some better pictures so that you would see that it's a different material, and we think you would be very happy with it.
Very well. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and open this for questions or comments. And again, I'd like to start with you, Yvonne. Any questions or comments on item number 2?
I don't have any at this time.
None at this time. Okay. And then Mike, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And then Bruce, any questions or comments for you?
No.
None. And I don't have any myself. So made that easy for us, Alan. Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to do so.
Great. If there's no more on item number 2, we'll now proceed to item number 3 on our workshop items. This is item Old Town Residential Design Standards. And I believe this is for Mark.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions here for Planning Commission to move forward. So some of our conversations have been, do we think that we want to select 5 or 6 architectural styles and use those as our model, move forward for the Old Town design standards and infill?
Well, if I may speak first, is that all right? I think that we should have at least 5. I think that if we even have 6 or 7, it might be a little more helpful. And then we were talking about not only maybe some photos of existing homes that we're looking to maybe expand on those types of homes, but also having some kind of thinking of illustrations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you remember, one of the examples I showed you was the isometric drawings.
Uh-huh.
So it took a typical building type, and then the isometrics also showed how that could be enhanced by additions to that building style and emulating that building style with the additions, which I think is a really good approach. So you establish this, how many housing types or architectural styles we want to use and incorporate, show those as isometrics, and then show photographs of buildings that are utilizing that architectural style in different configurations so that you have those as examples. So a person could look at this, pick the housing style that they prefer or desire, and then look at the example photos showing what they could do in order to enhance that standard style. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
And when we talk about preserving Old Town, and people I've talked to, it's very hard to articulate exactly what that means. Because there's such a range in Old Town. So what Mark's talking about is providing, people are concerned about massing, that is, how big is it compared to everything around it? So it seems to me that the isometrics help address that. Massing plus placement on the property. And if that's combined with some examples of architectural style and what can be done in the case of people wanting to renovate. But that provides enough for the public to understand what the code means by preserving Old Town. Because otherwise, it's really hard. It's very difficult to describe precisely what that means. But that's what the code has to do. So I agree with Mark that combinations of graphics and pictures as examples of what preservation means in Old Town.
Yeah, I don't really have any other comments. Did you have anything more to add, Mark? Or
We just need to come up with a decision of the direction we want to go, because what I'd like to be able to do is make an effort to budget some funding in order to hire a consultant to develop these development standards for us for Old Town. So I just want to make sure that we're along the same path and everybody's on the same page moving forward before I start to have that communication with consultants.
Is it possible for us to not to do a virtual walkabout? I'm not talking about walkabout Old Town, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be more than happy to help with it, to take pictures of exactly what it
Mhm.
is you're talking about,
Sure.
to kind of get a sense of where that bar is gonna be.
Right. Yeah, and we provided a couple of meetings ago, some of the examples in Old
Yeah.
Town, so, I mean, we could do that again and add to that palette of architectural styles, so.
Well, and I'm thinking of narrowing that down, that not including the ones that we don't want to include,
Right,
more pictures around where we think the bar ought to be.
yeah, I totally agree. Does that make sense? It's kind of a
Yeah,
resetting of
so-
the bar?
So
Go ahead,
this is
Mike.
Mike. So a long time ago when we looked at this, and we had also thought it was a good idea that if they're all one story, if this has to do with infill, if they're 1-story houses, then they could only go to a 1.5. You can't put a 2-story unless it's a 1.5. Then you can go to a 2 and then drop back down again. You're talking that same thing too, and no garages in the front of the houses and the street setbacks and all that types of requirements. Is that what you're looking for too?
Yes. The one thing I do have to point out is this, totally, I think the preference is to have it rear loaded wherever an alley is at, then it should be rear
Yes.
loaded. But that's something that's going to be a little different than the context of the existing neighborhood. So, if we want to go forward with that profile, then I'm thinking that's a great way to proceed. But that's also going to be a change from what's occurring in Old Town or existing currently. So, but I totally understand what you're saying, Mike, about the massing. So we'd have to
Yes.
look at each neighborhood independently to say, what's the majority of the housing type here and the height and the massing, and try and replicate that so that you're not throwing something that's completely out of that context in that neighborhood. So,
Yeah.
It's right,
which
right, I
has
agree.
had,
Go ahead, Mike, sorry.
well, and that has happened in the past when we didn't have any standards or, no rules. And I remember the people coming in so upset because, anyway,
because you have a 2-story next to all these single-story homes,
correct.
right?
Yeah.
Or a footprint of a building that's, dwarfs everything else around it. So, yeah, we really do need to be sensitive about that.
So, Mike, what I'm hearing is that currently we have standards, but they're pretty coarse grained. And I hear you talking about what we need to do is get finer grained to go, to look at each area and what it has, and to not violate that context in terms of massing, front or back loading, that kind of thing. Is that right?
Yes. And not so much totally backloading, because maybe you can't backload in some instances, but at least the
Right.
garage can be in front. It'd have to be side, or you could drive, alongside and garage in the rear.
Yep,
But I remember them called snout houses. Remember that?
Right.
They,
yep,
no snout
Yes.
houses.
it's very prevalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are I think that you're right on with that, Mike. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, you can still have the garage and have the entry from the street if there's no other possibility, but set back that garage so that it doesn't become the prominent part of your home.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's excellent.
So you can look from the porch. You can look from porch to porch to porch when you look down the street instead of
Yep, and
garage to garage.
see that housing wall. Yep.
So on these, if, Mark, you're saying that these are going to be standards, not guidelines. Is that what we're looking?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll have standards. Now, there may be some provisions for some guidelines about, color choices, architectural elements, things like that, but the standards have to be there in order to make sure that the placement, the massing, all of that is all controlled so that it fits our vision. and the context of that neighborhood.
In Old Town, there's no HOA or anything, right? Like there, none of the neighborhoods have any kind of HOA. And
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, the goal is to preserve that so that we're not getting the things that have occurred in the past, which Mike is very well aware of. And they did work, you know, in the 90s, and they put together a residential design standard document. But it was abolished. And so we're just trying to catch back up and provide those protections so that we don't have a bunch of infill stuff that's going to be, you know, detrimental to the neighborhoods.
So when you said it was sort of abolished, do you know of any of the reasons or kind of how that happened?
You know, I think a lot of it had to do with the economics of that. You know, when you require things to be to a standard, you don't have the ability to use a different method or a different style and keep your construction costs down. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, this, and also just even the style of home and the materials used and so on. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it's pretty representative if you drive around Old Town and you can really see the structures that stand out.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, the sore thumbs.
Right.
yeah, I'm for this. I think that it's going to make it's going to allow for, you know, your department to have a little bit more pressure on people as opposed to what's kind of out there right now. A good example in my eyes would be Washington. Is it Washington Street?
Washington, yeah. Washington Ave.
Washington Avenue, yeah, where, you know, we all know it's going to be going there across the street from the library. So, and that was something quite different than the picture that you were hoping to have going
Right.
forward. Yeah,
Right.
so, okay.
Yeah, so it's there just needs to be something in place that gives some guidance and preserves that that housing style and architectural style and period of time that exists in Old Town.
So kind of how would we proceed from here?
I will start to put together some information and reach out to some consultants about this and get their feedback enough that we can go out for, well, I've got to make sure I can put this into a budget for next year, but once that's done and I can get some idea of what we're looking at cost wise, then we would go out to an RFQ for consultants to design this and produce it.
Okay. Now,
Sorry.
is this going to be like an overlay? Or is this going to be,
No, it'll be codified, so it'll be a section of our code that relates to Old Town Residential District,
okay,
just like we've done to the Old Town Business Districts.
Yvonne, did you have a question?
He answered it.
He did, okay.
I waited
Anything
long
more?
enough. He answered it.
Thank
But
you.
I'll put some examples together of architectural styles so that we can discuss that and make sure that we're all in agreement with this is the style that, you know, that we want to go forward with.
Okay. Mike, did you have any more questions or anything?
No, I'm good.
You're good, okay.
Where on the website would I find? It's on the website, right? Where I know we're building the thing, but like the Old Town business plan, where would I find that on the website?
That's under CED. Yeah, so you have to go in there and just drill your way down through our website in that for community economic development, but it's located in there in documents.
Yeah, the design standards are all
I have the
fine with.
comprehensive plan, but I couldn't think of where I'd seen that one, so. Thank you.
Well,
Any other questions about that?
Mm-mm. No,
doesn't sound like it. All right. Well, this was a quick meeting this evening, you guys, so I appreciate that. But at this moment, I suppose if we're done with all of our questions and comments and we're finished with item number 3, then the chair, I guess there is no other public comment, is there, on this?
No.
No, okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have one more question. I can't remember, what was the deadline again for the housing action survey?
They're continuing to run it. They'll run it through the month of July.
Have you got a lot of response?
Yeah, there's been quite a few comments.
It makes for somewhat depressing reading, Mike.
I will,
Depressing?
I will email those out.
Okay. Well, it looks like we are finished for the evening, so the chair requests a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second, all in favor? All right,
Right.
thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you, Bruce and staff. Appreciate you guys too. Have
Thank
a
you,
great evening.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.